Mindy, thanks for spending some time with me talking. I enjoy having coffee with cool people, so thank you.
Oh, well, you're sweet to even think I'm anywhere close to being cool.
Well, it's interesting because I had somebody not long ago in conversation say it's really easy to know everybody around a small town, but do you ever really know some of the people that you see? And I know that you're out and about a good bit. We've known each other for a long time, but also we're neighbors. And so see you around the neighborhood, and so just being able to spend some time getting to know a little bit more about you is cool. The first question that I like to ask people is, who is Mindy Taylor?
Oh, geez, a lot of different things. I am married to a wonderful, very patient man, Bill. We have 3 adult children who are all married, and they're scattered across the eastern United States, but all 3 of them are married and have children. So we have 3 children and 5 grandsons.
All boys? All boys.
Not one of them could have had me a girl to dress up. So it's kind of wild at our house when everybody gets together.
That is, we have 4 boys at our house, and it's amazing that a physical structure could even support that many boys. So anytime you get all of yours together, now how old are they?
One is 7, we have 2 that are 3, and 2 that are 1.
Oh wow. And where do they live?
So the oldest lives in Brooklyn with her family, and so she, like I said, she's married, and they have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Then the middle child, it's a daughter, she lives in Gastonia, and so she and her husband have the oldest, a 7-year-old little boy. And then the youngest is our son, and he lives here in Florence with his wife, and a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Oh wow. So from 1 to 7.
Correct.
Whew. That's a wild time.
When
you get all of them together.
It is. When they all left at Christmas, Bill and I went to sleep and slept like 11 hours. So.
I can imagine. But now it's the most at any, or I guess of any of the grandchildren is 2 per. So if you were to take from either one of your daughters or your son, it's only 2 at a time under the age of 7.
Right.
Wow. Well, that gives you plenty. Now, do I remember right? Is your son a football coach?
He is. He's the head football coach in Latta.
Okay. Latta Vikings, right? Yeah. I don't know if I've ever told you this, I have very fond and unfond memories of Latta. Latta is one of the places that we used to go play ball, so I have plenty of times when I was playing and just good times over there, but it's also one of the places where I went to one of our I went to Hannah Pamplico and one of our basketball games over there and got pulled over on the way, kind of I guess one of the small town police officers. They're a lot like Pamplico, I guess. That's how.
Oh yeah. That's how you get some revenue.
So that's how the revenue gets generated. Well, I know, Mindy, that you spend a lot of time, and I'm curious what kind of community and governmental relations is. You spend a lot of time out in the community. What are some of the things that you're involved in?
External to Duke Energy?
Right.
Okay. Let's see. Well, first of all, with work, I serve a 6-county region. So some of the things that I do are outside of Florence. But in Florence, I am on the Florence Chamber Board. I am getting ready to rotate off the Coker University Board of Trustees. I am on the board of the Hartsville United Way. I am on the board of the School Foundation, so I chair the Dancing for Our Future Stars fundraiser. So we might need to talk. How are your dance skills?
Mine are terrible, but I've got one of my partners, team members, is phenomenal. So I don't know. Do you know David Kahn?
I do. We've actually talked to David. He might be.
I think his dad did it one time.
He danced with me.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I knew that David Sr. was a dancer, but David Jr. is also a dancer.
Yes, David Sr. and I danced in the very first one. So we just completed our 10th year.
How about that?
And I've chaired it all 10 years. So
oh, wow.
It's been a lot of fun and raised a lot of money to help support the teachers and students of Florence One schools.
Well, it's interesting because I was on the board years ago, not when it first started, but 2 or 3 years in, I was on the school foundation board for several years, and one of the mandates, as I recall, originally was to get to $1 million in corpus, and then they were going to start giving out money. And I think, and you may know better, I think I read recently where now they've given out more than $1 million.
Yes, it's the people in the Florence community have been very generous in their support of the school foundation. So they achieved that milestone early on and have been able to give out grants. And it's been amazing to see some of the creativity that these teachers can come up with to help enhance the learning for our students.
Curious, what is your, I mean, you've been doing it for a long time, Ms. Raisler. What's your favorite thing that you've seen them do?
Oh my gosh. You know, there's been such a wide range, but I think probably one of the neatest things, and it was a school, it was elementary school, and they got almost like 3D glasses, almost like virtual reality glasses, what a lot of kids would use to play video games, but I don't think a lot of these kids would have access to video games. But they used them to take field trips, because let's face it, you know, there are a lot of young people that have never been outside of the corporate city limits of Florence or outside of Florence County. So this gave them the opportunity to not only see other places, but to experience things that they might not otherwise have experienced. You know, can we go see what Denali looks like in Alaska? Can we go see what the Eiffel Tower looks like in Paris? So they were able to use these for these virtual field trips. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Awesome. I remember as a kid in Pamplico being excited to get on the bus and just go down to Huntington State Park.
Yeah.
You know, just the, because again, my grandparents had a place down there that we could go sometimes, but a lot of the kids in my class had never been to the beach. And so I can't even imagine. I have one of the VR headsets at home. We did Christmas one year. I thought that'd be a good, maybe to exercise, maybe that didn't work out. But as far as just being able to, it's amazing to me, the technology now, and to be able to apply that. One of the things, you know, having been a school teacher, that it was amazing back then. It was just so hard to really get people to grasp. But I'm excited that, you know, folks are using that kind of technology now in that way. And of course, one of the great things about the school foundation in general is, at least as I see it, is that it funds things that otherwise just don't fall within the regular mandate of the district, of just getting the regular again, as experience with 12 months of teaching 6th grade, you know, the regular day-to-day was hard enough, and to get funded, you know, so to be able to have a resource like that helps pay for some of these extra things, I think it's a huge benefit. I think they also have done, I mean, I've seen several other projects that they've got an investment project now that I think was funded.
The high school, yes.
That was funded by the school foundation, that, I mean, you know, from a technology standpoint is as good as we have doing it as professionals. So it's exciting to see, again, just the way that they're using, again, this outside money that you all have raised to really go back into and specialize in kind of some spot grants that allow people to do some neat things that otherwise these kids, it gives them a leg up, the ones who choose to and are able to participate in it, but it, yeah, it's something that otherwise they wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, well, they've also been a tremendous supporter of early childhood education, because let's face it, if you don't begin school with that good foundation, you're behind from the day one. So they've invested a lot in early childhood education as well.
Yeah, and I think statistically speaking, I mean, if you look at where and again, it doesn't seem as cool as some of the, maybe the senior level pride things that you hear but in reality, if you can't read, you can't get there. And I think that based on some of the limited reading that I've done over the years, it's such a huge statistical difference. Again, another example of that, I think, would be Help for Kids and some of the work that they do in making sure that, because again, I think I read somewhere that one of the biggest kind of impediments, and I think the reason that they went to year-round school is the drop-off for a lot of kids between, you know, the end of school and statistically speaking, again, I know some people like year-round school. It's going to start back in a couple of weeks. Others don't. But in reality, if you're looking at the well-being of all the kids, at least from everything that I've ever read, cutting down that gap, it creates you call it the summer slide. It prevents some of that. So the retention, again, from what I read, whether it's however you look at it, high-income families, or however you kind of categorize it, some folks have more opportunities in the summertime, and the ones who may have less just get farther behind. And so I think that, again, both those programs are really cool. So any other community things?
Well, the Mayor of Florence just recently, set up a Resilience and Sustainability Committee for the City of Florence, so I chair that. So we've just begun to meet, so we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. So stay tuned.
Yeah, you don't just join boards. You roll your sleeves up. It sounds like you chair it or you lead something. That must be part of who you are.
Well, that's the way I brought up. If you say you're going to do something, you need to do it. And if I'm going to be a part of the board, I'm going to go to meetings and I'm going to be actively involved. Otherwise, I'm going to get off.
Sure.
Too bad all people aren't that way.
No.
But yeah, that's just the way I am.
Well, I recently, in the last couple of years at least, read a book called Essentialism. Not sure if you're familiar with that. The guy's name was Greg McEwen. And one of the things that he talked about was doing a few things well. Exactly. And as difficult as it was at the time, one of the things that I realized was I was one of those people who was on a few boards that I just wasn't as fully committed to, and had to gracefully make room for somebody else. It's a hard thing to do, but in reality, I've tried to since then be more mindful of when I say yes, and it being something that I'm fully committed to. So I follow you on that, and I do. It's something that I think is, again, it's hard to do, but it is the right thing to do, and it makes room for other people. I'm curious, you mentioned, kind of the being involved in the community and doing that through work. What technically is your job at work?
I try to keep it a secret in that job protection. My title is Government Community Relations, and it means a lot of different things. The governmental piece is that I am the liaison between Duke Energy and local government. I don't really get involved at the state government level or the federal government. So between city and county councils, city managers, county administrators, local emergency management director. So I am their point of contact at Duke Energy. So that can mean a lot of different things, whether they have questions about tree trimming or street lights, or they want to come up with a different kind of partnership with Duke Energy. So I am that point of contact with them. The community piece is also a lot of fun. That's where we get to showcase what our employees do. They give back very generously, of both their time and their talents to the community. So it involves a lot of employee volunteerism in the community, but also that philanthropic giving. So I handle all of that, again, for that 6-county region. So, we look at what are the things that Duke Energy can invest in, because I get kidded a lot about giving away money. I see you giving away money to this organization. And I tell people, Duke Energy doesn't give away money. We invest in the community. And so, we try to be very strategic about what we do. Where is it that we can invest that money? And, it's shareholder dollars that are coming from the Duke Energy Foundation. That's not customer money. Where can we invest in the community to really make an impact?
So I'm curious, how do you, and again, maybe it's trade secrets, what goes into making that decision?
Well, every community is different. So you have to understand that community, and that's my role, is to understand the communities that we serve. Because at Duke Energy, we like to say we power the lives of our customers and communities. So we want to do those things that help our communities grow and thrive. And not everybody is as fortunate as I am. So are there ways to help the underserved in the communities? And what's important in Florence is not, may not be as important in Hartsville or in Dillon or in Sellers. So every community is a little bit differently. And, we try to meet the needs of those respective communities, because, there's really not one size fits all.
No, but I imagine that's part of the work that's gratifying, is really getting to roll your sleeves up, getting into the communities and figure out what's important, and then probably to go back and look at the investments and see how they've paid off.
Exactly. That's the fun part of my job. And so much of the times you can see the real tangible difference that your efforts are making. Whether it's going into an after-school child care facility that's, serving underserved children and painting it, because, they need a nice place to go to after school as well. So it's doing a little bit of both. It's investing the time and the money.
For sure. Well, now, if I remember correctly, you went to Clemson.
I did.
You originally from here? How did you get from Clemson back to Florence?
So I'll just start. I was born in Arlington, Virginia, because my parents at the time were working for the FBI.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Little cool. Yeah, in my baby book, I have a letter from J. Edgar Hoover congratulating my parents on my birth.
Little did he know.
I know. And so my parents didn't really like living in D.C. and moved to Florida. We lived there for a few years and then Savannah. So I actually moved to Florence when I was in the 5th grade. Went to Del May School, the old Del May.
Okay.
And so I grew up, that's most of my growing up that I remember. And so graduated from West Florence. And my goal was to get as far away from Florence as I could at the time, but stay in state. So that was Clemson.
Go Tigers.
Yeah, absolutely. And had the most incredible experience at Clemson. And my dad said, you've got 4 years I'm paying for at Clemson, so you need to get in and out, because the 5th year is on you. So I was very focused about what I did and graduated from Clemson in 4 years, no summer school. But while I was at Clemson during the summers, I worked for Carolina Power and Light.
Okay.
And I took customer payments. And so I did that for 3 summers and sometime a little bit over the Christmas holidays. So when I got ready to graduate from Clemson, I had a degree in economics. I had no idea what I wanted to do. The traditional path was let's go into banking, and that didn't sound a whole lot of fun to me. But I got a job offer from Carolina Power and Light Company to go into marketing. And so that meant moving, once I graduated, to Rockingham, North Carolina. Not far, but far enough. And so I did marketing for Carolina Power and Light for about 10 years, about 8 years there. And the marketing that I did was really, I worked with residential and commercial builders to try to get them to build all electric. I worked with HVAC dealers to help them size heat pumps for residential structures. I did home energy audits, so I've climbed in a lot of attics and underneath a lot of homes that I don't think I would do today. It was a lot of fun, but that also gave me an opportunity to get involved in the community as well. So I did that, and then I got into management, and then after that they transferred me to Sherrill. I spent 2 years in Sherrill and then moved back to Florence in '98, and here I am. My family's here, so I don't plan to go anywhere.
Sure. Well, it's interesting you talk about the home audits. I think that's something that I never paid attention to until I actually had one done. And I'm assuming that's a service that Duke y'all still
we do
offer. It is for anybody who hasn't, it's a cool project, because they came in and showed me how everybody wants to save money, and so they showed me how. And I'm assuming that was part of what you did was, this is how much, this extra refrigerator everybody has, the old beer fridge or whatever
garage,
it is. But really walking through and showing you how, and I think it seems counterintuitive to some extent, right? That the power company would be trying to show you how to save on power. But, again, I think it's a neat service. I also didn't know, and I don't remember where I heard it. Maybe your president or somebody came and spoke to one of the local clubs here. How many weathermen are employed by
the
Duke
linemen,
Energy?
the line techs?
Well, I'm even thinking of people.
The meteorologists.
The meteorologists.
Yes. I think we have like 5 full-time meteorologists on staff. Because think about it, our job revolves around the weather. So if we're anticipating a storm, whether it's an afternoon thunderstorm or a hurricane or snow and ice, we've got to plan for these events, because you can't fully staff for hurricane restoration every day. It's just not cost effective. So we look at that to prepare for, to make sure that we've got all the physical resources in here, you know, the poles, the wire, the transformers, but also the people resources too. So we have agreements with other utility companies, so when we get into those types of situations, they will come and help us, and at the same time we will go and help them. And then also we have a number of solar and wind turbines in the Midwest, so that's an unregulated side of our business.
Okay.
And so think about, you know, we certainly don't want to send somebody to the top of a wind turbine when we're anticipating a storm to do some work, because safety is paramount and first in our business. So.
Yeah, well, you can't imagine. I have a client who is a lineman, and you know, of course, we're all grateful for them all the time, but particularly you know, before, during, and after kind of those periods of storms, and how much and how hard they work. And it is, you know, one of the things, I have a tremendous amount of respect for electricity, because it can take you out in a hurry. It's a really dangerous job that I don't think that we probably think enough about sometimes. All the not just the weather stuff, but just the things that they're dealing with. And you guys do have a ton of them. And so again, interesting to me. Every now and then I receive an email. Maybe it's a top secret, I don't know, but it's the kind of the Duke Energy weather alert of what's going on in the I say the community, or what they're expecting. And so I've always been impressed with the amount of time that you guys put into that, and it certainly makes sense that you would be able to that you would use that to allocate resources. But it's also super good for the community to be able to have, I remember one of the more recent storms, to be able to have, you know, your folks lined up waiting for it to get here, so that they were here. And I appreciate the fact they're putting themselves kind of in harm's way to be able to do it. It's amazing, and I can't imagine how hard it must be, or the amount of pressure. I'm curious, from your perspective, what's it like for them during one of those storms? I mean,
they love it.
Really?
I mean, interesting. I mean, you know, you get this adrenaline pumping, and they really like working storms. I mean, everything that I've been told. So, and they work very, very hard under, you know, in very dangerous conditions, but they enjoy it. And, you know, I think it's also very gratifying to them, particularly in storms when they're restoring power, and people come out and thank them, or they'll hold up signs, or they'll give them cookies.
Sure.
And I'll never forget, I think it was probably Hurricane Matthew, and we had probably 2,000 linemen, and I say line techs because we do have some female line techs, stationed, and they were living at the Florence Center. And so while they were there, people would randomly stop by and bring cookies and treats for the folks that were staying there, and so that's very much appreciated.
Well, it's easy. Power's easy to take for granted when all you can do is, you know, we're fortunate enough to have lived our whole lives where you flip the switch and the lights come on. It's easy to take for granted, but it sure is one of the things, the creature comforts, that we really quickly don't want to do.
Oh yeah.
Without. I remember, you know, for a long time I lived out in Effingham, and I was on a non-Duke Energy line, and we had one of the storms. This has been in the last 10 or 12 years, and the lines went down, and I forget, they were down for 2 weeks. I mean, I had to come and stay at the Hotel Florence with the kids and all. And again, it's easy to take it for granted, but you sure don't want to spend a whole lot of time with that, especially not these days. It's bad enough dealing without the internet. When you can't have the power, you can't have that either. So it's double bad, you know, particularly with kids.
Well, and we're doing a lot of different things to harden our system to make it more resilient, and to upgrade it, to make it a smart system. So, and I can't even really articulate all the things.
Yeah, I'm curious what a smart system is.
That they're doing. I mean, and you know, you may around town see these boxes, and it will say self-healing, the self-healing network, meaning there are things that can cycle through to hopefully fix itself before you actually have to send a line tech out there.
Okay.
And I've just told you the extent of my knowledge.
I
tell people my knowledge is an inch deep and a mile wide.
Well,
so
at least now I know what those boxes are for. So
yeah,
mystery solved.
Yeah. So
Well, that's a neat thing. I'm curious. You've had a lot of things that you've had an opportunity to do, both just life-wise. I've seen, we're friends on Facebook, so I've seen some of your travels and some of the stuff I knew about your son because of that. You've had a chance to do a lot of stuff, both personally and professionally. I'm curious, what you're most proud of?
I would have to say, my family. My family's everything. And when you get down to the bottom line, that's what's most important. And that's why when I got transferred back to Florence, I decided that I wasn't leaving. In terms of stuff or things that I've done, probably one of the coolest things I've ever done is I got to fly in an F-16.
Oh, wow.
So years ago, once upon a time, before the merger between Progress Energy and Duke Energy, I covered 13 counties. So it included Sumter. And the Shaw Air Force Base has this program called Honorary Commanders. So it gives us a real inside look at the military, which I never fully appreciated until I was able to do that. And people just have no idea the gratitude that they should show the folks in the military. But one time I got afforded an opportunity to fly in an F-16, and they did this periodically, and I'll never forget, it was a Good Friday, and so it's me and I think 3 other men, because you obviously flew tandem, and so we were up there, and and so my husband was there, and we did what they call a vertical takeoff. So you're on the runway, and then all of a sudden, the pilot just says, "Let's go." And all the control sticks are right at your lap. It's not like a steering wheel driving a car. So we took off flying down that runway and then went straight up vertically, then flipped over, so we were upside down before he ever righted the plane. So that was an experience. But honestly, it felt like we were floating. It really felt like we were floating. And he said, "Mindy, do you want to do a 360? I'm like, "No, I'm good." And he's like, "No, watch that road down there." So we did a 360, and that was fun. And then there was another plane up close to where we were. So then we started doing the simulated dogfighting, and
wow.
That's when we started taking on the G's. So, but
so that gave you a whole new. Have you seen the new Top Gun movie?
I have. And you have to go to the movie theater to watch it because it's just,
It's phenomenal. But you had a new appreciation for that.
I did. That was an experience of a lifetime. Yeah. Of course, I was also offered an opportunity to do a tandem jump with the guys at Fort Bragg, but I respectfully declined.
Understood.
Because unlike Quincy Kennedy, I am never, ever jumping out of a perfectly good airplane.
Same. I've always used the weight limit excuse. I would say, "I'm sorry, man, I'm over the weight limit for that tandem jumping." Because Quincy is crazy enough. Yeah, he doesn't just jump. He flies upside down and videos people while they're jumping. And so I can't imagine. I've tried to explain to him that he's jumped something like 3,000 times. He's had 2 good crashes, and it happens about every 1,500 jumps. So I keep explaining to him that at some point before too long, he's due for another one, just by math, if you keep doing it enough. But it's, it's interesting. But and Quincy Flies, but I don't know that I know anybody who's doing the F-16. And again, if I remember, I don't remember in the movie if it was I know all the newer planes in Top Gun were newer than the F-16, but I don't remember if the one that they stole, spoiler alert for anybody who hadn't listened or hadn't seen it, I don't remember if it was an F-14 or an F-16, but those are amazing machines. And we went to, my son and I, on vacation this summer, went to Dave & Buster's at the beach and did the virtual reality.
Oh, cool.
They have a virtual reality simulation of Top Gun. So you can make money on anything these days. But you sit and the seats move and you're in and Mindy, I almost threw up in the VR version. So I can't imagine what it would be like to be up and flying around and to get to call it work. That's pretty cool too. So it's neat being able to, I think Trish told me one time and that she had gotten to go, one of her neater experiences from being in TV was getting to go inside a nuclear reactor.
Mm-hmm. I've done that.
That's not something the average person gets to do, is put on the big suit and go in and check those things out. So it's neat to get to do that and call it work.
Yeah, actually, the Robinson nuclear plant, in fact, all of our nuclear plants, every so often go through a refueling outage. And so, I don't know, some years ago, the site VP said, Mindy, would you like to come help us during the outage? I'm like, sure. You know, I knew they don't let me touch any buttons at the nuclear plant, so I'd be pushing paper, right? So I had to go in for some training, and I had to learn to dress out and all the protective gear. And I'm like, I don't need to wear this to push paper. He's like, oh, you're going to do what we call FME watch. So I went into the reactor, and I watched people going in and out of the area surrounding the fuel pool to make sure that if you went in with 5 pieces of equipment, you came out with 5 pieces of equipment, that nothing fell in. And so that's what I did. And so that was interesting.
And I have to imagine, you know, having watched multiple documentaries on Chernobyl, I'd have to imagine that's one of those where you guys have a tremendous amount of safety protocols to make sure, like you say, even something as small as a tool, I'm sure, left in there could make a huge impact and difference once they fire that thing back up. I mean, I'd have to think that safety's a big deal.
Safety's number one in all that we do, whether it's at the nuclear plant, our line techs, or myself just driving a vehicle. Safety's number one.
And that's
if you can't do it safe, you don't do it at all.
Well, amen. I try to explain that to my teenage sons. I'm not sure that they listen quite as well as your line techs, but you know, again, it's the stakes are high, you know, and you guys do a lot of that. So, Mindy, I'm curious. One of the things that I find fascinating about people is what they identify with. So, kind of the only 2 questions above and beyond who is Mindy Taylor. The only other kind of pre-planned question that I have to ask you is if you could identify with any fictional character, whether it's a superhero, comic book, storybook, if you could identify with one character that you think best represents Mindy Taylor, who would it be and why?
So I've thought about this, and I think it would have to be Tigger.
Okay. Do tell. Say more.
Well, because I bounce around a lot, you know, I don't sit still. I have 2 speeds. I'm either wide open or asleep. And, you know, when Tigger sings that little song, he talks about being fun, fun, fun. I like fun. And, you know, work is pretty serious a lot of times. So when I'm not at work, I like to have fun, fun, fun.
That's it. That's the wonderful Tiggers. The thing about Tiggers is Tiggers are wonderful
things.
Fun. Oh.
Their tops are made out of something, their bottoms are made out of strings, they're bouncy, flouncy, something, something, full of fun, fun, fun. The most wonderful thing about Tiggers is I'm the only one.
That's exactly right. Well, there's only one Mindy Taylor, and I just want you to know I appreciate you spending some time with me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, Chip.
Thank you.